Namaskar and welcome to the 17th episode of our satsang. The satsang that we always get into at the end of our Pran Leela Upasana. Now, in the last few days, I have been speaking about the two aspect pran, which is the energetic dimension, and tan, or body, or the physical dimension. We have spent time discussing these two dimensions. We know, we have also spoken, we have mentioned that in Karma Yoga for 21st centuries, this Fit for Life program, this sadhana paddhati or practice routine, this journey, we use a map which has four elements in it: tan, pran, man, chit, or physical, energetic, mental, and spiritual. These four dimensions. So, we have been speaking about the two dimensions, tan pran, or physical and energetic. Now, we are going to now also move into the other two dimensions, which is manas chitta, man and chitta, or mental and spiritual. But before we do that, in today's session, I am not going to enter directly into those dimensions, into details of those dimensions. But today I wanted to just introduce the difference between these two. That is, Tana Pran, physical, energetic. This is one block. And if the other block, the two, which is mental and spiritual, that together, that block, if we divide these four into two blocks, the first block is gross and subtle, and the second block includes subtler and subtlest. So this is the more gross block and this is the more subtle block. Or loosely we can call it, this is the material block and this is the spiritual block. So we're going to really understand the material dimension and the spiritual dimension vis-a-vis each other, just in comparison to each other. And we are going to get introduced to specific qualities or characteristics of these two dimensions. And one very important quality or characteristic of each of these dimensions, the two dimensions, material and spiritual. And once we understand this one quality, a very important quality or character of these two dimensions, we are also going to understand our relationship with these characters, with these characteristics, and how we often make mistakes in the manner in which we relate to these characteristics. Let's explore it a little further. Now, we know that the physical and the energetic dimension, which is together, we are calling it the material dimension or the material world, has a fundamental characteristic of measurability. We can measure them. It is tangible. We can touch them. We can, see them. We can feel it. We can hear if we make sound. We can hear. If there is a smell, we can smell. So with our sense organs, we can kind of recognize it. And specifically measurability, we can measure that, if something it occupies space, we know that it is 2 centimeters long and 5 inches height, etc., or 10 feet wide and all that. If the distance between two places we can measure, it's 2 kilometers or 2000 kilometers. The distance between Kolkata and Delhi is 2000 kilometers, let's say approximately. So we can measure all that. These are all measurable. That's how the characteristic of the material world gets defined. It's measurable, it's tangible. There is touch and feel to it. There's we can see, etc. Now, on the contrary, the stuff is not exactly the right word, but whatever we find, the elements that we find in the spiritual world on the side of the subtle, which is on the side of mental and spiritual, manas chitta, in that side, all the stuff that we get is more difficult to measure. It cannot be touched and it cannot be seen with the naked eye as such, or even with a microscope. It cannot be heard. Only the effect of the spiritual dimension on the material dimension can be seen and touched. Even energetic stuff in the material dimension can be measured. Heat, for example, you can measure, put a thermometer and see that this is 36 degrees Celsius or 98 degree 98 degree Fahrenheit, etc. If you try to understand pressure, the energy manifests itself in pressure, so you can use a barometer to measure. Similarly, for example, light energy. Light is also part of the material world. Although light has been used in the spiritual world a lot, the symbolicism of light, but light is a form of energy, for example. It's part of the material world, which is why we can measure it, we can see it. We can measure using lumens. I mean, right now as we are shooting, I have been lit up using a nice little light. We can there is a regulator with which we can reduce, we can make it warmer or cooler and all that. So everything related to the energetic world is also measurable. But the moment we go into the world of mental and spiritual, which is related to consciousness and awareness, we get into a terrain where things cannot be measured, things cannot be bounded into something. For example, our thoughts, our opinions, our aspirations, our hopes, our beliefs, these are not things that we can hold on to. We cannot say it's 5 kilograms of hope or 10 kilograms of aspiration, or give me 8 grams of belief. No, so all of these kinds of things, our thoughts, our rationalization process, our plans and programs, we see manifestations of that. We can have a plan and we put the plan on paper, and then we can actually look at the plan, and we can mark it, give it marks in terms of compare it with others and say this is a good plan versus the other, etc. So we can always give or measure stuff that, the manifestations of this in the material dimension, but the unmanifested is what we are talking about when we are talking about the spiritual dimension. So manaschitta, or mental spiritual processes, consciousness, awareness, mind, this area is intangible, it is unmanifest. So in this scale of manifest to unmanifest, gross to subtle, if gross is here, subtle is here, subtlest is here, and grossest, which means manifest and completely unmanifest. It's a scale, it's a slider scale or a knob. And in this slider scale, as we go from manifest to unmanifest, gross, subtle, subtler, subtlest, we move from the physical to the energetic to the mental to the spiritual world. And where exactly these lines are is not something that we prescribe as part of the Karma Yoga for 21st Century Fit for Life program. We're not prescribing. We're saying these lines you got to find. You got to find your own, seek where these lines are and figure out where it is changing from physical to energetic to mental to spiritual. And of course, where emotions, feelings, where they fit here, where in the energy to mental boundary, where they fit, etc. All that you have to find out. Now, what we are saying now is that the characteristic or quality of the physical dimension, as we saw, material world, is that it's very measurable, whereas the quality or the characteristic of the spiritual world is that it is not measurable. Hence it is limitless. The moment we talk about the material world, it is limited, it is bounded. There are many boundaries which define it. Whereas everything in the spiritual world is limitless. We are going from limitation to no limitation, boundary to no boundary at all. So in traditional Indian languages, limit is called Sima, boundary, and boundaryless is called Asim. So Sima se Asim. From limitless to limitations, boundary to boundaryless. That's the characteristic that we are talking about. And now, what we are saying, that our conditioning is such that most of, as we grow up in this life, most of the decisions that we make and how the manner in which we navigate this life, we make a fundamental mistake which pertains to our relationship with these two characters of these two worlds or these two dimensions. So, in the material dimension, which is very limited by nature, by character, that is the dimension where we try to extend our limitations. We will try to become limitless. So, if we say I'm a very rich person, that means it is defined by how much I own in the material world. So, if I have 10 properties, one here in Kolkata, one in Mumbai, one in Delhi, one in Dubai, one in London, and one in New York, and one in Los Angeles, and one in Tokyo, etc., and I don't know, one in Adelaide, then I will be considered very rich. I have extended myself in the material world. That's the measure of how much I have, extended on my development. But the fact is that any particular moment of time, I am actually only in one place. I may have whatever ownership of properties anywhere, but the fact is that any particular moment, time, and space, I am only in one place. So I am enjoying. We say in our languages, bhog, enjoying only this one bit. As I am here, I am just here. We say in our languages, there is a saying, dane dane pe likha hai khane wale ka naam. Yeah, what it means is that whatever a grain that you are eating, the one who is eating, that person's name is written on that grain, which means the one who is eating is the owner of that piece of grain. So what you can enjoy is what you own. It doesn't matter where you put your name, which stamp paper, legal document puts your name in it. That if you cannot really enjoy it, it's not yours. Whoever is enjoying it, you may have something in your name, but there's someone else who's really enjoying that place. That's the one who's enjoying it at that particular point of time. So that's a kind of thought system or belief system. But what we are saying is, in this material world, in any case, we have to understand it's very limited. No matter what we do, we cannot extend ourselves too much in this material world. Whereas in the spiritual world, our spiritual dimension is really limitless. We can be anywhere at any point of time. It's not limited by time, by space. So if I'm thinking, if I have to actually go from here to Tokyo, physically take my body there, it will take time, energy, effort, all that. Whereas mentally, if I have to just go from here to Tokyo, there's a famous song in Bengali, Kothao amar hariye jawa nahi mana, mone mone, means I can just get lost anywhere I feel like in my mind. Well, that explains that in my mind I have no limitations. In my consciousness, awareness, there isn't even the limitation of the time it takes to think. It's even more limitless. So, in the mental spiritual world, in our mental consciousness, that dimension is where we can experience limitlessness. And that is the dimension where we try to bring in limitations of our ideologies, of our, we say I'm a Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim, that's my thought system, my belief system, or I'm a right wing or a left wing or a centrist, or I'm a humanist or a feminist, and this and that, and so many isms and so many boundaries we bring into our spiritual dimension. That's really what is sad. That's the mistake that we make in our relationship with our own spiritual dimension and our material dimension. If only we could understand with clarity the fundamental characteristics of these two dimensions and relate with them appropriately. So in the spiritual dimension, I can be with anyone, any point of time. I'm limitless. I'm not contained anywhere. No matter where I am one with everyone. All the spirits, all the consciousness of everyone. I'm one with that. Only in the spiritual dimension. I cannot be one with everyone. No, I mean, in your libidous world, in full of lust and libido, you can want to be one with, everyone of your opposite sex, etc. and all that. But that is not how it works. You can be one with every woman or every man and woman in and every sentient being. You can be one with all of that in the spiritual world, in that dimension of yours. And you are one. You just have to recognize it. You cannot put boundaries there that I am a husband of this person or a wife of this person. In the spiritual world, no. In the spiritual world, you are one with anyone and everyone. You are always already one with one and all. You cannot deny it. You just have to recognize it. Whereas in the material world, you cannot just be one with everyone. You have to, if you are here, you are here with whoever you are. So that's what needs to be recognized and understood. We will explore this more and try to create the correct kind of relationship with this material and spiritual world through our Fit for Life program in the Karma Yoga for 21st Century path, as they say. That's one of the main goals of our path. But that's all for today that I have for you, friends. Take it easy and take care. Namaskar.